Hi, my name is Rizwan and I am going to show you how to install Linux operating system for Oracle products. Um, Linux is today very much popular for server level softwares like IBM, Oracle, and so on. Um, um, Reason is quite simple that it handles or its architecture is basically designed more closely for server level softwares. Though Microsoft also have gained very popularity in last 5 years, and their server level class is now much more mature than the previous versions. But companies or professionals still prefer Linux operating system over the Microsoft architecture. So we generally have now a lot of Linux flavors available in market according to the regions. Like we have Red, so Red Hat, which is very popular, and SUSE, SUSE Linux. And now we also have heard about the Oracle Linux, which is basically the Red Hat Linux or modified Red Hat Linux operating system. So just simple guidelines about both the operating system is that uh, professionals mostly prefer Red Hat Linux for Oracle products, and now it is as I already told you that Oracle Linux basically um, a modified version, or just you can say same version of the Red Hat Linux. Right now we have most mature version are 6 and 7 in the market. Every new installation must be preferred on the latest available version like 7, but if there are some compatibility issues, then you must go for the 6. But generally rule of thumb, always try for the most mature release of the operating system as well as your Oracle softwares. So earlier or 5 years back, although Oracle acquired Linux in its product platform almost now it is 7 to 8 years back, but professionals still prefer Red Hat Linux because it is most mature than the Oracle Linux. But right now, from last 2 to 3 years, Oracle Linux also become very mature, and installation process are now very easy on the Oracle Linux. So I will show you installation on Oracle Linux operating system. SUSE is also very popular, but mostly network guys or a network related product are prefer on the SUSE Linux. It's all up to you. Basically I will prefer Oracle Linux because it provide you more friendly environment for Oracle products. But you can also go for the Red Hat, there is no issue. um, Oracle Linux, and another reason is that Oracle Linux is very easily available on the internet for the testing or purpose or the development purpose. So this is all about the Linux. But before starting the installation or going for the installation, you must take care few critical points. You must be consider few points very which are very important, and that is all about the hardware. The hardware which you are going to use for the Oracle Linux or a Linux operating system must be carefully designed for a plan. Hardware, first of all, machine, it must be dual processor, RAM must be greater than um, or equal to 8 GB, and third most point is storage. Okay, this is most critical component of your hardware machine, and it must be planned and decided very carefully. In modern era, we mostly listen about the sandboxes, and all the OS professionals or your hardware professional, even you go into the market and discuss with some other IT professional, they will recommend the storage like sandboxes. Uh, but practically speaking, if you are going for the sandbox, you must purchase the complete solution. Okay. uh, Other, if you do not purchase the full solution, then try to avoid and uh, prefer local storage. Okay, prefer sandbox if you purchase it with all required features. Like, now first and most important part is multipathing. Multipathing must be available. Storage for Oracle server must be configured properly. At this stage, the meaning of this terminology is that your SAN guy must configure your sandbox uh, for Oracle server, especially because Oracle database machine is very IO intensive machine, and mostly the SAN professional configure the SAN box for all of the connected machines, and there is the equal priority of IOs for all the connected machines. But you all know that your databases machines, your email servers or your file servers are very IO hungry machines. So there must be proper IO priorities set in the sandbox for these machines, and most importantly, multipathing must be enabled and configured properly, and use proper file systems like VFS file system, Veritas file system, specially designed for the sandbox solutions, and it provides you a lot of features, a lot of very interesting features, which are basically very useful for the boosted IOs, required IOs. Okay, um, you can Google it and check what are the benefits available in this Veritas file system. Okay, all these things, all this stuff is become very much complicated and required a number of consideration and discussions with your SAN teams, and later on you will provide them the information, and they will again come some sort of a bigger informed chunk of the information, and in my experience, things doesn't settled. They become more complex, and if they start working on the sandboxes to provide you the considerable IOs, things become more complex. That's why I prefer that local storage. You must prefer local storage with good rate controller card and the high speed hard disk for your Oracle products or Oracle databases. Here I will show you that simple text guidelines. Oral logic is the basic platform from where you are getting all this stuff. Okay, always prefer high gigahertz CPUs with less number of cores for Oracle databases. If you are going to install the Oracle database, you must prefer high gigahertz CPUs and a less number of cores. And reason is obvious that your licensing prices will reduce. Choose at least 8 GB, same directions. If you are going to install your OS or your Oracle database is for a journal size of the database, like it is between 100 to 500 GBs, then 32 GB RAM is enough. For production system, always prefer 64-bit operating system. This is also very important consideration. Right now, all the server class softwares are only available into 64-bit options. Prior to that, we have a 32-bit OS options, but right now all the companies are now moving toward the 64-bit options, and 32-bit options is just now you can say obsoleted is going to obsolete in the market. Always use physical hardware and avoid VMs for the Oracle production environment. This is very important point. Most of the guys, especially from the hypervisor technology, suggest that you can install and configure your RDBMS systems on the VMs. Yes, it is true, you can install, you can configure, you can run, but you cannot get the desired performance in the VM environment. Always prefer physical hardware and prefer the hardware which is under your control. Prefer local storage with high speed disks and RAID controllers versus sandboxes. I already have discussed this point, and there are a lot of you must read it. You can get a lot of stuff on this point on the internet, and just Google it. Always use RAID 0+1 configuration for Oracle products. Yes, you must be sure about this point. Server must have a dual power supplies. It is a general requirement. Decide the IP and host name. They must not be changed after the installation. Okay. You must always decide the IP address and the host name of your operating system before the installation. It is general practice that DBA guys ask their operating systems teams to install the Linux operating system with the default configuration, and later on DBAs changes those configuration according to their Oracle products. But this approach doesn't suitable, or because you always overlook something and later on as you reboot your machine, the changed or the settings which you change for the Oracle environment are disappeared. So it is better if you plan and provide or configure your Linux operating system properly as per your requirement. These are few guidelines about the swap space. Okay. This is again create a separate temp table space, temp mount point in the Linux operating system. We will discuss during the installation. Create several mount point for the Oracle software using the with the naming convention Oracle. Provide 25 GB to the route mount point. These are basically guidelines for the Linux operating system. Before going to the installation, you must plan your IP address and host name, and during the installation you will see that we will give 25 gigs of the space to the root mount point. We will create a swap mount point according to these recommendations, and we will create a separate temp directory on the Linux operating system, and that is very crucial because server class software mostly require the temp directory on a operating system, and if we do not create it dedicatedly with 4 GB size, then it is automatically created in the root file system and with some sort of default size like 150 MB depending upon the Linux version. Network configuration must be static. Disable all secure setting. Okay, so these are the guidelines. here let me plan it here, delete it. First of all, IP, in our case it will be 192.168.5.5, sorry 5. Second one is host name, and I am going to install Oracle database for my inventory system, so I will name the database INVDB. Similarly, I will name the operating system as INVDB, and I will choose orology.net as domain name. Third one is about mount point. Disk sizing, I have 100 GB of disk. So this is the partition, 25 GB for root mount point, 8 GB for swap. C point is 4 GB for my temp. D remaining for Oracle. Okay. Okay, these are the guidelines. So as I suggest in my recommendation, always configure your environment of the production environment. Don't prefer the VMs. But right now here the example which I am going to show you is on the VMs, VM environment. But make sure this is just for the demo purpose, to learn the Linux operating system installation for Oracle products. But if you are going to install the Linux operating system for your production Oracle environment, you will prefer the physical hardware. So I have here a VM environment, and this VM environment is 5.0 version. Create a new virtual machine. I will select the custom. I will name it INVDB. Next, and this is the data store default. Use a virtual machine version 8. It is recommended. Linux 64-bit, it is okay. Though we will install the Linux version 7, but in this version, since this option is not available, so I will prefer this default option. It's okay, there is no issue. Next, we will use 2 cores with 2 CPU, 2 sockets with 2 cores each. So we will totally have 4 cores. I will provide it 4 GB of the RAM. Since it is a demo installation, that's why I am assigning the 4 GB of the RAM. If you are in the production, of course in production you will have a physical RAM, so there is no need for it. Okay, leave it the default, make it 100 with thin provisioning option, and especially next, finish it. Now you will have an inventory VMs here. Just want to edit its configurations and provide it default. Here I have ISO local media, which I have already copied on the machine. Press OK, check this option and okay. Now we will power on the virtual machine. Okay, it is now open the console. Okay, press the enter. Okay, let's start the installation. Just escape this point. Okay, this is the first screen. Select the English United States, continue. Okay, in Linux 7 you will find this one single console. Okay, just first of all select the time zone. I will select my local time zone, and right now on my system it is 6:12 p.m. so it is 18. Okay, 12:03, everything is okay. Your time zone and your times must be set during the installation. It is very important, especially and in my experience I observed that if your all the systems have properly have a setup of the time settings and time zones, you will observe excellent performance. Installation source is already set during the VM creation. Software selection, select software with GUI options, and development package compatibility libraries. Okay. In these two options you will find the most of the prereqs are automatically installed. Done. Okay, installation destination, this is very important point. If we do not configure it all then the installer will create the automatic or a default layout of the partition, but I will select the manual configuration, as we said that we have to create our manual partitions as per our requirement. So press done. Okay, standard partition, first of all select root partition provided 25 GB, add mount point. So press plus, and this time select the swap. Since we have a 4 GB of the RAM, then I will create a 8 GB of swap. Okay, add mount point plus. Now I will create a temp 4 GB, add mount point, similarly plus, and right here Oracle, and you will not provide any size, and all the remaining disks will be allocated to the Oracle mount point. You can see that we have three partition which are basically system related, and one is automatically granted to the data partition. So this is happens once you provide the manual Linux operating system automatically, or installer automatically has the idea that the rest of the partition, basically the data partitions. Okay, press the done and accept the changes. Okay, now come on the network setting. Here you will provide your host name, which is invdb.oralogic.net. Now we will configure the network. IP version 4, manual IP, add, and we have decided 5.5. so what I will do, 168.5.5 tab 24. okay, press add button, and this is edit here. Just press done. Our network settings are okay. Security policy, disable the security policy. All the security setting must be disabled. Disable all the security settings and firewall option during the installation setup. Okay, last side one is the, if possible, try to install all the packages. Which I already tried during the software selection. Okay, now we will press the begin installation. You see that once I have clicked that button, installation has been started, and the first step, installer will format all the required partitions, which you can see on this installer's performance. At this stage we can set up the root password. Linux 7 asks you to provide some strong password during the installation interface. Okay, done it. Now installation process is started, and it may require some time to complete. Till that time I will pause the recording, and since this interface is completed, then I will come back. Usually once this all process is completed, the installer will ask you to reboot the virtual machine. Installation or process has been completed. This is the final screen, and it could take as much time depending upon the configuration and the resources of your hardware. In my system I think it took almost more than 45 minutes. Okay, now we will press the reboot button. Now virtual machine is going to reboot in the back end, and meanwhile I have created an interesting presentation for you about the SAN disks, and okay, meanwhile press enter here. So Linux is rebooted being in the back end. So here I have a standalone server. This is standalone server, and you can see that in a single standalone server we just have a processor, RAM, RAID card, and hard disk. Data is handed over to RAM from the processor, and from RAM it is transferred to the RAID controller card and then written on the hard disk. But if you see on the other hand, in environment like a SAN configuration, you will find that there are a number of servers which are connected to the SAN switches, and that those SAN switches are now connected with the SAN. And in that configuration you will see that data is from processor to RAM, and RAM to HBA. HBA means host bus adapter. From that host bus adapter the data is then transferred into another stage, which is SAN switch. From SAN switch it is transferred to HB of the SAN basically sandbox also have the HBS, and then internally SAN have a one controller box, and then the storage box is after that storage controller box, or storage controller layer. So you can see that there are almost 8 steps or 8 hoops to write the data from RAM to disk. But if you see in a typical standalone server, there is only one hoop, which is a rate card controller. So if you have to write data from RAM to directly to the disk, so it is generally, practically as well as generally, you can see that a standalone server is a good option when you have a fair idea about your data growth size. So that's why I prefer a local server or a standalone server rather than a sandbox configuration for Oracle database especially. Right? Well, that is software. Now, uh, there are some steps required. Okay, lessons information, accept it. Okay, press done. Okay, installation setup, quick finish the configuration. No machine. Okay. Sorry. US time zone. Typically, box should not ask these type of information again and again. Um, um, so okay, now it is connected with our logic user. From this prompt we can go login as the root user. So I just want to install few further okay. Okay. We have just completed the installation. um, Now, in the next CVT, I will show you how to install the Oracle database on that Linux server. Uh, okay, till then, take care. Bye. I hope you will.